Welcome to the Maritime Vision podcast. I'm your host, Paul Wioli. In each episode, we bring you exclusive interviews with maritime professionals, industry experts, and students. Our guests come from different backgrounds, including shipping, yachting, offshore, supply chain, and more. Our goal is to give you all the knowledge you need to succeed in the maritime industry. Welcome everyone, welcome back to a new podcast episode. And today in this podcast episode, we are joined by Danial Kaabi, the CEO of Sea Horizon Offshore. Welcome Daniel, it's a pleasure to having you here in this podcast episode. Can you introduce yourself please?
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm Danial Kaabi. I'm the CEO of Sea Horizon Offshore Marine Services, Qatar. The company itself is actually a third generation family business that started in the late 80s. We first started in the salvage industry for shipwrecks and providing tugboats for salvage, and then carried on to more of in-field oil and gas operations. And with me being the third generation, we've rebranded and started a fresh company in Qatar to service the oil and gas sector in this region.
Okay, so basically the services you are proposing is like everything related to the energy sector. Can you elaborate a little bit on it?
So a lot of the services we propose is partnerships. So one of the things we like to do and emphasize in is do strategic partnerships with companies that we believe would add to the energy sector in Qatar. You know, there's a lot of big things happening when it comes to expansions. You know, the North Field expansion alone is going to double the the LNG infrastructure here. So with that comes a lot of requirement for all kinds of vessels, whether it's diving vessels, supply boats, you know, port operations are
Mm.
growing. Currently, we're actually doing with consultants from Aberdeen, we are redeveloping the emergency response plan for Qatar Energy's ports.
Okay.
And that is a very exciting project. So you get a very full insight of what there is inside the port. So not just providing marine assets, but providing marine consultancy is another aspect that we like to pride ourselves in.
Okay, very interesting. So the offshore sector is quite developed, I imagine, in Qatar. Can you explain a little bit how the industry is in Qatar? Because I know I'm based in the Netherlands, so we have, of course, as well a big offshore industry, especially in the North Sea. And what about in your region?
I mean, in Qatar, we focus a lot on local content, right? So in the Middle East in general, you're seeing it more and more. In Qatar, it's local company development. So Tauteen is a initiative that has been started by Qatar Energy to promote local companies within the energy sector. So we're seeing a lot of assets and a lot of local companies getting longer term contracts to fulfill the energy sector to support smaller local companies as well,
Mm.
which is a very exciting time. You know, it's this region alone for the oil and gas sector and maritime. It is growing. Saudi Arabia with their expansion and the demand of the vessels. You know, in Abu Dhabi, they just launched the new island projects, which is another growing aspect. And here, like I said, we have the North Field expansion, and that is an unbelievable expansion that is going to double, if not triple, the requirement for marine assets, and that's just for offshore. You know, with the port expansion, we can see a lot of tugboats and berthing vessels coming in. So it is exciting times.
Nice. Yeah, interesting. Because of course, in this podcast, I try to to educate as well young people in new field in the industry, on especially of the offshore industry. Can you maybe explain a little bit the challenges and risk we have associated with offshore? Because I imagine it's a beautiful industry, but we have nowadays in 2024 and some challenges.
There's a lot of challenges, right? Where there's challenges, opportunity. Crew welfare is very important to us, right?
Mm.
Offshore is very different. You know, we have our I've said this before, and I'll always say that our crew is the heartbeat of our organization. You know, their happiness is extremely important, and it's not like ocean-going vessels where they're going from point A to point B. It's they're in field the majority of the time, and you know it's a 24-hour operation where you know you're working closely towards platforms, you're supplying platforms. It does become very grueling, and you know it's we do appreciate every member of our crew a lot. So and that's one challenge, and a lot of other challenges is the market. Of course, right now we're happy because the market is amazing, but usually, but the last 5 years we were not
Mm.
happy. So currently the market upturn, especially because of the developments in the Middle East, uh, are happy times. But the offshore is very exciting. You know, a lot of people I speak to before getting deep into the offshore industry, when you tell them you're in shipping, they immediately assume, you know, okay,
Yeah,
containers, tankers,
yeah.
you're moving from point A to point B, but a lot of our operations are now in field and operational for one country.
Okay, interesting. So when we talk about the market itself, the macroeconomics, what is, I mean, the biggest impact in the, I mean, the important factors in the market? Because, for example, in shipping, which is everything about supply, demand, it's depending, like, for example, people how they make shopping, for example, it has a big impact in the shipping industry. When I'm talking about shipping, I'm talking about container vessel, etc. But about the offshore sector, what is the contributor factor, I can say?
Currently, I mean, the contributing factor is oil production
Yeah.
or energy production, right? So the more energy production that we're going to see from a country, the more demand of vessels we're going to see for us. So that's why, like we said, is the region is growing tremendously on all fronts with production, whether
Mm.
it is, like I said, Aramco, Qatar Energy, and Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. All three of these big giants are growing extraordinarily with expansions. Along with that, which also comes a challenge, which is market indicators, is right now what's happening is there is a demand and there is no supply.
Yeah.
There's less supply, and what the vessels that are needed are going towards a more fuel efficiency model. You know, we talk a lot about diesel electric. What's the next future fuel? And the issue is shipyards are also not building.
Mm.
So when you have all these three mixtures, the demand continues to increase as we search for new supply, new ways to get supply. And previously, we would have a lot of vessels coming in from Southeast Asia into the Middle East. So that was able to offset. But right now, given that all markets are growing in oil and gas, so even Southeast Asia, a lot of new discoveries are happening, a lot of new production, and those vessel owners are, are getting paid more to be there.
Mm.
So this is why there's challenges, there's growth, and the supply is not there currently, but the demand is extremely high.
Okay. Okay. When you are talking about vessels, because people imagine, the offshore industry is like this big platform, and they don't think about any vessels. Can you maybe elaborate on what kind of specific type of vessels we have in this offshore industry, especially in your case?
So I mean, a wide range of things. When we talk about the offshore industry itself, AHTSs, which is anchor handler tug supply vessels, platform supply vessels. We have maintenance vessels, which are maintenance and construction vessels. We have accommodation vessels and accommodation jackup barges. Um, Diving support vessels. And of course standard tug vessels too, anchor handler tug, not just anchor handler tug supply. So these are the wide range of vessels that we work with mostly. What we focus on at Sea Horizon Offshore is anchor handling tug supplies because
Mm.
one of the focuses we do is rig moves. So we do a lot of towage of rigs from point A to point B. So we one thing we like to bring in is a lot of vessels with high bullard pull, which is the tonnage that you can pull. So we focus on anything above 120 tons because in this region it is not doesn't exist much,
Mm,
along with accommodation and maintenance vessels because no, the more work that happens, the more accommodation you're needed offshore, right?
mm.
So these
Yeah.
vessels are very important to us.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can see those kind of vessels, especially in Rotterdam, because we have
Yeah.
these big companies, Van Oord, Boskalis, they use this fleet as well. In your opinion, what are the key factors that contribute to the success of offshore operations?
Health and safety, in my opinion. HSE is very important, right? If you do it safely, you're doing it right.
Mm,
No downtime. I mean, if you look at the economic factor of it, when things are done right, when things are done in a safe manner, you're never gonna have downtime because of no injuries and no prevention. But also, it's important in the line of work that we do. Health and safety is very important. So
yeah.
we have a lot of QHSE policies that we implement for our people and our staff. You know, the trainings, a lot of seminars, and a lot of protocols that we take, and we take it very seriously. Along with that is one thing that Sea Horizon's Offshore Marine Services focuses on is mental health and safety. Because, you know, like I said earlier, our crew is offshore for sometimes 6 months. So we did earlier last year partner with a organization called Mental Health Safety Solutions, where they provide mental health consultancy for seafarers abroad,
Mm,
and we're really working closely with them to bring them into the Middle East and to coordinate with our crew because you know, especially during COVID, which now we think about it was a very long time ago, but only about 2 years ago where we were still suffering from COVID.
yeah.
So it was a downtime, you know, it made a lot of offshore owners really aware of the situations going on and the crew welfare, how important it is. We had a lot of crew members stuck for a very long time. And
Mm.
and and during operations, you know, 'cause sometimes the operations are needed, so crew changes are more difficult to have. So we really want to focus, and I think that the happier the crew, the the more you offer for the crew, the better your production is.
Yeah, I imagine I'm talking about the crew. I mean, recruitment, it's a big part as well. Is it like quite hard and challenging to find new people? Because uh, I think offshore it's not so visible as an industry. On I imagine for young people, it's quite hard to find, isn't it?
Well, yes, that's for sure. You know, for a lot of times, to the offshore sector of this industry is very small, so we all know each other and
Mm,
we all coordinate together. But when it comes to crew on vessels, it is getting harder every day. It's the demand of ships are going so high, and during COVID, again, a lot of crew members pursued new careers, so we lost a lot of crew. And now with the growing economy and the growing demand, we have an unbelievable influx of demand
mm,
for new crew, and a shortage of crew. So we're facing this challenge daily on
yeah.
getting new crew.
Yeah, imagine. Yeah, imagine. Yeah, I mean, in the oil industry, it's the case. I mean, this recruitment issue. So yes, I imagine it's quite hard. But now, maybe to make some advertising for young people who need to join this offshore industry. What?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I really pride myself in is because I was a young person in the industry. Well, I guess I'm still a little young. Um, And I do want to always be an advocate to the youth in the industry because when I joined this industry, I was 21 years old, right? And I had
Mm,
nobody around me um, in the same age bracket. So I relatively grew pretty quickly. And I like being there for for the individuals that aren't. So I always like bringing new people in, and even our hiring scheme sometimes wants to be. We admire to be as and aspire to be um, attracting the youth, but sometimes it's a lot harder
Yeah.
than the way we say it is.
Yeah. Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, especially this, as you said, it's not a big industry, so I mean, you need to make double investment to bring this young generation. But maybe to make big picture about the offshore industry, because this podcast is like more like an introduction of the offshore industry. What kind of different jobs we have in this industry? Maybe for people who listen this podcast, I mean, in the technical side, on more maybe in the commercial side, which is more your side.
The exciting part about the offshore industry and the shipping industry as a whole, but the offshore industry more specifically, is we have roles for everyone, right?
Mm.
You know, when I first entered this industry, I wanted to be a sports agent, and I know you heard my podcast I did with Sea
Yeah.
Trade. The first thing I told them is I wanted to be a sports agent. I never wanted to be in the maritime industry, but because a third generation family business, we get in this and then we adapt. But learning in this industry, I realized there's room for anyone when you're in finance, technical, the geological surveys that we have to do with our team. So in reality, I could probably say if any aspiration you have in your career, you can fit it in the offshore industry. We have people on our team that at one point were real estate agents and they joined us, and we get it from all parts of different
Mm.
sectors. So I think that the offshore industry has room for people from all sorts of dreams and aspirations, and there is space, whether it's finance, whether it's commercial.
Mm.
We do a lot of negotiations, a lot of contracting, a lot of technical and operations, quick decision making. It's important.
Yeah. So if for someone who hesitates, between like the shipping industry, like or the offshore industry, what is the difference if you want to guide these people?
If you want a lot of excitement in your life, join the offshore industry. And when I
Yeah.
say excitement, is a lot of hard work, and
Mm.
and no 2 days are ever the same in offshore. And that's
Yeah.
something that we hear a lot. I mean, shipping as a whole, but in offshore, because our vessels are 24/7 working,
Mm.
right? And offshore, there's never a dull moment. It's a 24/7 job, right? There's
Yeah.
no Friday and Saturday. There's no holidays, but it's exciting. It keeps it exciting.
Okay, interesting. On about the soft skills you need to develop. I imagine, as you said, like quick decision making. It's
Yep.
a big part. What else we have?
Quick decision making, lots of creative thinking.
Mm.
You need problem solving skills, I think, are very important within the offshore industry. And yeah, and a lot of passion.
Yeah.
A lot of passion. We have there's a lot of opportunities in everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have every different jobs. I mean, I've seen like a offshore broker for more the commercial side. You can work in sales in the offshore industry, in project management. I've seen as well this structural project engineer as well.
Yeah,
So I will make a podcast with someone working in this in this position because it's very specific, but I think it's quite interesting.
I can introduce you to someone actually that would be perfect for.
Okay, yeah, with pleasure. Because yeah, it's the kind of position that it's not visible at all, but I think it's I think you need to know a lot about it because it's quite
Oh,
a
of course. Oh, yeah. I
technical
mean, it
job.
starts with them, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
get passed on to us to do the work.
Yeah. Now imagine it's wow. This industry is quite is very interesting. And now I want to switch to more about your business. So it's a family business. So did you have any pressure when you have to take the business? Because I imagine maybe you didn't have you have this pressure from the family. You need to take the business if you wanted to make a other career in
Well, like
sport.
I told you earlier, right, I did not want to come into the maritime sector or let alone the offshore sector. I studied in Canada and I wanted to be a sports agent. I did a lot to work towards that, and then pressure of the family business. So then when I came in, I was understanding the dynamics. I was understanding what was happening, and really. So the best part, the best advice I give people is if you're pressured into something, think about what you always wanted to do and how you can coordinate that with what
Mm,
you're doing. So then I got the idea of that's how I opened Sea Horizon Offshore is to become an agent, well, kind of, but like take the sports agent mentality into representing companies within
ouais.
a sector that they're not familiar with. So we go around the world and we really work closely with companies on an exclusive basis in representing them on projects to support them in country in Qatar. Because for us, we understand the dynamics of Qatar. You know, with our local shareholders and our local partners, we know how things work here. And it's kind of a handheld approach that we offer to our clients and our customers.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you found this combination. That's good to know. Yes, because sometimes
Exactly.
it's yeah, it's hard to just find the right path for you, especially when you are young, because you said that you started at 21 years old. Yeah,
Yes.
but everyone is quite old in this industry, I imagine. So it was quite not it was not easy at the beginning, no?
Oh no, not at all. Well, this is why I tell people I never had it, so I enjoy being the advocate for the youth because I enjoy being that person for new people in the industry. When I first came into the industry, everyone I was meeting was above 40 years old,
Yeah.
which is which was great. You speed up the maturity, that's for sure. But I never had someone guiding me through the way, and that's why it's good to have. And in a lot of cases, if someone doesn't have that, they will just exit the industry and go find something else. So this is why, as an industry as a whole, collaboration is important.
Yeah, yeah. About collaboration, in especially in the offshore industry, do we have like some like big organization like we have with YoungShip, for example?
Yes, so I am involved in YoungShip
Yeah, we're
UAE.
doing.
That we were I then that's what got me into it and from the beginning. So I am the vice president of YoungShip UAE, and I was so excited to join YoungShip because it exactly provided the platform that I didn't have coming into the industry. So YoungShip, we're a community, and what I'm shocked about is how big YoungShip has become because everywhere I go, there's YoungShip members
Yeah,
all over the world. And it's
that's
an
true.
incredible thing, right? We've become a community of maritime individuals, and I've created so many relationships just through YoungShip. You know,
Mm.
there's been a lot of times where um, I've met people and we've realized that we're both in YoungShip. Like, for example, our legal team, our legal firm is because of the relationship of YoungShip.
Mm.
Uh, our some of our offshore brokers we use is because of YoungShip. So it's to create a community is great, and more organizations like YoungShip are very important for us.
Yeah, I've seen you became like a board member, as you mentioned,
Yes.
of PNG. What is your responsibilities on role?
So I'm the vice president and board member of YoungShip. I um I became that a year and a half ago. What we'd like to do is we like to organize events. Now we know that YoungShip traditionally is more of a social outing event, but we like to mix it up. We like to organize events, but also educational events. So one thing we did last year, which was really cool during Ramadan, we did a breaking a fast on a big diving vessel called the Everest, which
Mm.
is actually a Dutch company that owns it. So we did a whole breaking a fast and a tour on the Everest, which got a lot of good feedback. So we like to mix it up. mentoring projects, relationship building, and also education. During the Evergreen vessel blockage, we did a salvage seminar with a lot of people that were involved, and we did a podcast kind of thing for the people of YoungShip. And we do some fun stuff too. We go visit the yacht shipyards where they
Yeah.
build the yachts, and then golf crafts. We visited them, and they gave us a whole tour. So it's very exciting, and we touch base on all the maritime aspects. So it's very nice, and we look forward to doing a lot more with that for sure.
Yeah. So now it's an international organization. We have it, as you mentioned, everywhere in the world. In Rotterdam, we have YoungShip, but we have in London, in Hamburg, I think, big capital and big cities.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that's good. Now, let's talk a little bit about the region, like Dubai, Doha, Qatar, etc. Because I think it's quite interesting because, every time I interview someone, it's in Europe most of the time. Uh, so now that I have you in the podcast, maybe we can talk about this part of the world for the maritime industry. I mean, we have more and more opportunities. I can see each day, every day, some people just move to Dubai or other in Qatar, in this part of the world. Can you elaborate maybe what kind of opportunities it offers on about the future of it?
Well, Dubai itself is, and the UAE in general, is becoming a maritime hub, right? We have Jebel Ali, which is one of the largest container ports, and with their new is that development in the IMO, getting the repeated recognition constantly, um, it is growing as a maritime hub with a lot of, I think we have in Dubai relevancy. Every port is very important. We have Fujairah for the oil and gas
Mm.
terminals. We have Jebel Ali, Musafa, and Abu Dhabi, which is tremendous for trade, right? The trade possibilities are growing. Also with Qatar, Qatar, we have the development of Hamad International Port, right? Which is the airport as well is named Hamad International, but there's Hamad Port, which is where we see all the container vessels coming in,
Mm.
and the expansion for 2030 of Hamad Port itself is tremendous. It's going to create so many opportunities and create so much more infrastructure for companies to be able to come, and for shipyards to establish and support, and that is what's needed. We have a lot of demand for vessels in Qatar, and
Mm.
and that is the infrastructure is being created to make that smoother transition.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Now, because I asked you this question because I mean, I know a lot of people now working in. I'm talking about Dubai because Dubai is quite popular nowadays. Maybe
Yeah,
it
of
will
course.
change. But what about Qatar, Doha, for example? Because I think Doha is a big hub. Uh, is in the future will attract like every people in the world to come to Doha because now it's not as famous as Dubai, for example.
Yeah, well, Dubai has done a tremendous job in attracting foreigners to come and become expats into the UAE. Qatar right now, with their growth and their expansion, it has a lot of potential. And
Mm.
frankly speaking, I really enjoy living in Doha. Very family oriented, smaller, a lot smaller than Dubai. We a lot more of a community, uh, and a lot more of a European feel. But and I do think with the oil and gas sector especially, we will see a lot of people from the North America, Europe, because there has been a big agreement for the North Field expansion with Shell.
Yeah.
So we'll see a lot of people from the Netherlands coming, hopefully, to Qatar soon.
Yeah.
So I do see in the next by 2030, there will be more of a population growth here
Mm.
for maritime and the oil and gas sector for sure.
Nice. So a destination to keep in mind for future
Yes,
people. Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, because yeah, when Dubai will be full of people, and maybe they will need more in Doha anyway. Um,
Exactly.
so now talking about sustainability, I imagine oil and gas is always people make it like media make it a big stuff. About this new fuel like LNG you mentioned, we have hydrogen, all this. How are you preparing the transition with this new kind of fuel?
We are looking to do the transition of the new kind of fuel. We're exploring many options because, you know, we are leaning towards new build programs and vessels that for the future. Now, when you build a new vessel, you're building for 20 years,
Yeah.
right? The life cycle of offshore vessels are generally 15 to 20 years old. So we're very careful and we're doing a lot of studies in seeing what to build because what you're building is for 20 years and you don't want and for these shipyards 2 years time once you build you're 2 years behind at that point, and then the fuel is there, and if you make the wrong decision, so the worry is there because we still don't know as an industry what to build,
Mm.
but we, I think as an industry itself, we're doing the studies and we're being very careful. Also, when it comes to offshore, we only build what we're kind of told to by the oil companies and the energy sector. So once they co-create and collaborate with us, then we'll have a very good idea. And I think that's what Qatar is doing, which is tremendous, because there's a lot of projects that are requiring new build vessels, but the likes of Qatar Energy and Qatar Energy LNG are collaborating with the customer base to build for the future. So
Mm.
they know that maybe, for example, hydrogen is the next fuel of the future. So they are looking to develop a hydrogen infrastructure, a hydrogen bunkering infrastructure to support this. So that's when it comes to collaboration as a whole as well.
Yeah, I'm doing this thesis for school about the supply chain of hydrogen. How can we make it available in the upcoming years? Because the problem with hydrogen, this is not itself. It's not the process is not hard. I mean, you take water and you just take the molecule of the water. But the thing is that you need to build all the bunkering infrastructure, the pipelines, and um,
Yes.
do you think any potential in this, especially in Qatar for it? Because I think in Europe it's quite hard to build all this for now.
I mean, uh, I've always said that in order to tell us about what the fuel of the future is, you have to create the infrastructure for it first.
Yeah.
So, and it's very difficult and it's very costly. Especially for a fuel like hydrogen. We've actually explored this with a company from Canada who was visiting us in Qatar last week, in where they are producing hydrogen
Mm.
through LNG. So they have plasma radiators that you can put LNG in, and it produces hydrogen. So we're exploring that idea closely with Qatar Energy. I'll actually, since you're doing your thesis there, after this, I'll send you some of their information
With
to
pleasure.
give you a background. But that's something we're exploring. And we know, and judging from those meetings that we've had, that Qatar Energy is also exploring other ways and to create an infrastructure for the next fuel, whether
Mm.
that's hydrogen, ammonia, um, whatever it may be. It's exciting times. LNG, of course, is a great transition fuel.
Yes, but the thing is, it's very hard because now we have a lot of alternatives, LNG, ammonia, methanol, extra. But it's quite hard to find the direction, which one we need to choose, which one we need to invest. That's it.
Exactly, of course, and that's the problem. That's why no one is going to pick the fuel of the future, until the infrastructure is there, until our ports are able to provide it. I've seen in the container shipping world, there's a lot of brave decisions being made on new builds. I saw that Maersk had put in an order for some methanol
Yes.
container vessels, which I think for container vessels, it makes more sense to make that leap. But for offshore, the infrastructure is very, very important. To have
Yeah.
bunkering facilities during 24-hour operations is very important. And how is the fuel of the future going to affect what we're doing with the heavy towage projects, right? So will it produce the same power and the efficiency? So
Yeah, it's a big topic right now, but yeah, we will see how it evolve. I think it's quite interesting.
exactly.
Yeah. So Daniel, I think for me, I asked every questions I wanted to ask you. Maybe if you want to add something, do not hesitate.
No, I mean, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to catching up in the near future again, maybe sometime when I'm in Holland, or we'd
Yeah, for
love to
sure.
have you in our office in Qatar, and hope to hear more of your podcast. What I think you're doing is absolutely great. I
Thank you.
told you before we started this call that it's nice to see someone young and really shedding light on all parts of the marine industry. So I hope that you can actually influence a lot of people to enter the maritime sector, and we'll have the net future at home. And hopefully we can host you in Qatar one day.
With pleasure. Thank you to be part of this podcast, Daniel. It was a pleasure. It was very interesting, and I wish you, of course, all the best for 2024.
Thank you, Paul. Same
Thank
with
you.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and watching this episode. We are looking forward to bring you more insights from maritime professionals, experts, and students. Do not hesitate to follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Your support means a lot to us and helps us to bring you more content.